Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole, and today I am going to do the mid-year freakout tag classics edition. So if you've been following my channel, you know that I already did the mid-year freakout tag for 2024. However, while watching the video that the Active Mind did of this freakout tag, I noticed that he ran into some of the same issues that I ran into, which is that he noticed that a lot of the questions for this tag tend to assume that you're reading a certain type of literature, mainly that maybe you're reading some fantasy, but certainly that you're reading a lot of contemporary, recently published books. And for him, he actually reads a lot of philosophy and other types of classic literature. And so he was struggling to answer the questions. And so in his tag video, he adopted some of the questions. And I loved his adaptations so much that I decided to do another mid-year freakout tag because I felt the same problem. Like I felt like by the time I was done with my video, it didn't actually represent me as a reader. It was just me answering the questions and finding books to fit into the questions, even though they weren't the books that I was most excited about or interested in this year. So this whole video is going to be in the same vein of the mid-year freakout tag, but I am using the questions from the Active Minds video. So that's the part of this video, I guess, that is the classics edition. So let's just go ahead and get straight into the questions. You will find that some of the questions stay exactly the same, and I have left my books the same for those questions. So question number one is, what is the best book you've read so far? And I'm going to stick with my original answer, which was The Phantom Tollbooth. In fact, I enjoyed that book so much that even though I just reread it in May, I am doing a read along for it in July on July 27th. So I will go ahead and put information about that in the description box below, as well as the card above. You can see the announcement video, and hopefully you're watching this and you haven't missed it. But if you have, you can go back and watch the recording of the read along. But I will just be getting on live and live streaming for 12 hours and just hanging out with people while we read this book together at our own pace. So I'm not going to say much more about the book or why I love it, because you can watch my first mid-year freakout tag to learn about that. Question number two. This is an updated one and is, what is the best short story you've read so far this year? And for me, that would actually be one of the stories that is found in the Arabian Nights, particularly the Malcolm Lyons translation. And that was the story of King Shahriman and his son Kamar al-Zaman. And I just really enjoyed the overarching story that was in that particular tale, as well as the embedded narrative. It was just a delight to read that story. There were so many interesting twists to it. I was reading an article that was talking about how, interestingly, that tale has a lot of aspects of Greek love involved in it, even though it's originally a Persian tale and then considered an Arabic story. And just a really interesting historical background to that story that had a lot of surprises in it that were very different than some of the other stories in the book. Number three is name authors that you haven't read yet but would like to read this year. And for me, partially thanks to an active mind, I have to say it would be Mikhail Sholokhov. And I have an edition of In Quiet Flows the Dawn. He mentioned In Quiet Flows the Dawn in his video, not for this question, but a different one. And he just talked about how much he enjoyed that book. I've really wanted to get to it. I've heard that if you like Tolstoy and you like War and Peace, that you'll probably really like this book. And I do like all of those things. And then after hearing him quickly talk about it in that video, it just really upped my desire to want to read more of that author or any of that author, and most particularly that book. Question number four is your most anticipated book for the remainder or the second half of 2024. And the book I am most looking forward to getting back to by the end of this year would be Drood by Dan Simmons. So if you've been watching my channel, you know that this was one of my most anticipated reads for the year. I actually started it and then soft DNF'd it because there were other books that I wanted to read before I got to that one, and I'll talk more about that later in this video. Question number five is, what book or books were the most surprising, the most disappointing, or that you just had the most hot takes on? And I have one video where I talk about the book that most surprised me, disappointed me, and that I had a lot of hot takes about. And I will put that in the card above if you want to go and see that video, as well as put it in the description box below. But that's all I'm going to say about that book. Number 6 is who is a favorite new author? And for that, I would have to choose Eowyn Ivy. I actually learned how to say her name, so I hope that's correct. And yeah, I read The Snow Child by her earlier this year. And in addition to the book just being a really fascinating retelling of a story and just unique and atmospheric, it was also beautifully written. I was so surprised and really delighted to read this book. It far surpassed my expectations, and it made me very interested in reading more of Eowyn's work. Question number 7 is a book that made you sad. And ironically, this was The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivy. That book brought me very close to sobbing. It was just so touching and heartwarming and moving that I was just very impressed by her writing skills and by the story overall, even though you get hints very early on of where the story is going to go because she talks about the story that is based on in the book. Question number 8 is not one that the active mind phrased in his sort of updated mid year freakout tag, but I felt like this was kind of a question that he was getting at. In the original video, it's the most beautiful book that you bought this year, but he also kind of struggled with that because there was a book that he liked the cover of, but wasn't sure that it would technically be considered beautiful. I had the same issue with my book, so I've changed this question to your favorite book cover that you've bought so far this year. And for me, that would be The Book of Disquiet. So that was what I had in my original video, but I feel like this phrasing fits more. To me, it's like just a very artistic and pleasing book cover. And I was so excited when I found this edition. But at the same time, I don't know that even I would describe it with the word beautiful. Question number 9 is, are there any books that you need to read by the end of this year? And for me, I have 3 books now. One would be Drood, which was my original answer. But then what happened was I actually started reading it, and I realized that there were 2 books in there that just kept getting mentioned over and over again, and that I felt like if I didn't read those before I finished Drood, I would end up feeling like those books were spoiled. And so now the other 2 books that I need to read before the end of this year so that I can get to Drood would include Bleak House by Charles Dickens and Our Mutual Friend by Charles Dickens. Per usual, the last question or prompt would be to tag some people. I'm not going to tag anyone in particular, but I'm going to say if you read a lot of classics or just a lot of literature that maybe hasn't been recently published and you were finding that some of the original questions didn't quite fit your style, maybe try doing these ones. This is not intended to take away from the original mid-year freakout tag video. I think that one's great. I will probably continue to do both of them each year, but I will also link in the description box below the original tag video for the mid-year freakout tag and the original creator for that. And I will also star the questions in the description box below that are ones that I changed and updated based on everything I talked about in this video. So you'll see for those ones, both the original questions as well as the updated question, if you will. So that's it. I thought this was just a fun little update to do, and I do feel like this video more accurately represents me and what I read. So if you like the books that I mentioned or are interested in them, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can hear more about the books and learn more about me and my reading taste and book reviews and whatever else I put up on this channel. And also like this video if you liked the update, and leave some comments below and let me know how this may have changed some of your animals. I don't know how this would change your animals, but let me know if it did that too. Leave a comment below if this update has changed any of your answers to these questions, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.